The afternoon sun streamed through Briarwood Mall's skylights, casting bright squares on the polished floor. Judge Lorraine Whitaker walked at an unhurried pace, her low heels clicking against the tiles. The small boutique bag in her hand swayed gently with each step. She'd just treated herself to a new silk scarf, a small reward for closing a difficult case. Her judicial instincts, honed over years on the federal bench, picked up the shadow dance behind her. Two sets of footsteps, trying too hard to seem casual. When she slowed, they slowed. When she turned, they turned. The reflections in the store windows confirmed her suspicions. Two uniformed officers, maintaining distance, but locked onto her every movement. Officer Dale Rourke kept his eyes fixed on her, his hand resting on his belt with practiced casualness. Behind him, Officer Trent Voss moved with the eagerness of a hunting dog straining at its leash. Their boots squeaked against the floor tiles as they mirrored her path through the mall. Lorraine maintained her composure, her face a mask of calm. Inside, her mind worked like a court stenographer, recording every detail. The officers' badge numbers gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The time displayed on the mall clock, 12:03 p.m. The number of security cameras visible in the ceiling corners. As she passed the boutique where she'd made her purchase, she noticed Janice Klein, the security director, standing in the doorway. Klein's perfectly pressed blazer and severe expression matched the cold calculation in her eyes. She pressed a manicured finger to her earpiece, lips moving in whispered commands. Lorraine took 3 more steps into the main corridor before Officer Rourke made his move. He cut through the flow of shoppers, positioning himself directly in her path. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ma'am, you're coming with us for theft." His voice boomed, deliberately pitched to carry across the corridor. Heads turned. A teenager lowered his pretzel. A mother pulled her child closer. Before Lorraine could respond, Officer Voss grabbed her arm from behind. His fingers dug into her flesh as he twisted it behind her back, using far more force than necessary. The boutique bag slipped from her fingers, landing with a soft thud on the floor. "I'd like to speak with the store manager," Lorraine said, her voice steady despite the pain shooting through her shoulder. "And I'd like to see proof of this alleged theft." Shoppers had formed a loose circle around them. The distinctive glow of phone screens appeared as people began recording. Lorraine noted each witness, each potential piece of evidence. Janice Klein stepped forward, her heels striking the floor like a judge's gavel. "The item was concealed," she announced, not bothering to specify what item or provide any evidence. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for shoplifting." "I have my receipt," Lorraine began, but Officer Rourke cut her off. "You can tell it to the judge," he sneered, reaching for his handcuffs. The metal gleamed under the skylights as he snapped them around her wrists, cinching them deliberately tight. The steel bit into her skin, but Lorraine refused to wince. Her mind continued cataloging every detail. The exact words used, the specific time on the mall clock, 12:07 p.m., the growing crowd of witnesses, the security camera angles, the way Officer Voss's grip left marks on her arm, the slight tremor in a young store clerk's hand as she watched from the boutique doorway. "Start walking," Rourke commanded, shoving Lorraine forward. The force of his push made her stumble, but she caught herself, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her fall. They marched her down the main corridor of the mall, past families with shopping bags and teenagers with smartphones. The officers positioned themselves on either side of her, making sure everyone could see the handcuffs, see her shame. It was theater, she realized, a public spectacle designed to humiliate and degrade. A woman with a stroller whispered to her companion. An elderly man shook his head. More phones appeared, recording the scene. Lorraine held her head high, even as her wrists throbbed from the too tight cuffs. Through the growing haze of discomfort, She continued her mental documentation. The names on the store signs they passed, the timestamp on the digital directory display, the badge numbers of both officers, now permanently etched in her memory. The way Janice Klein followed several paces behind, speaking rapidly into her earpiece. The sound of whispers and camera clicks followed them down the corridor. Rourke's grip remained unnecessarily tight on her arm, his fingers pressing into the same spots Voss had bruised moments before. They were skilled at this, she realized, this public parade of power. The way they positioned her in full view of the maximum number of shoppers. The deliberate pace that stretched out the humiliation. "Keep moving," Voss growled when she slowed slightly to ease the pressure on her wrists. His voice carried just enough threat to make nearby shoppers lower their eyes, pretending not to see. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as officers Rourke and Voss marched Lorraine through the mall corridor. Their boots echoed against the tiles, a steady rhythm punctuated by whispers from the growing crowd of onlookers. The handcuffs bit deeper into her wrists with each step. At his small electronics kiosk, Milo Garner stopped adjusting his display of phone cases. His eyes widened as he watched the scene unfold. The security camera mounted above his kiosk whirred quietly, its red light blinking as it captured everything below. "I'd like to speak with a supervisor," Lorraine said, her voice carrying the same measured tone she used in her courtroom. "And I need to contact my attorney." Officer Voss responded by yanking her arm sharply upward, sending a bolt of pain through her shoulder. "Stop resisting!" he barked, though Lorraine hadn't moved a muscle against his grip. "She's not resisting," called out a woman from the crowd. Denise Harper stepped forward, her phone steady in her hand as she recorded. Her sensible shoes and neat blazer marked her as someone who worked in the mall. What exactly did she do? We all have a right to know. Rourke's head snapped toward Denise, his jaw tightening. "Back up, ma'am, unless you want to be charged with obstruction of justice." His free hand tapped meaningfully on his belt. "I'm just asking a question," Denise persisted, though she took a small step backward. Her phone remained raised, its lens catching every moment. "The store has reported missing inventory," Janice Klein announced, appearing from behind a column. Her voice carried the practiced certainty of someone who had rehearsed their lines. She adjusted her blazer, a nervous tell that caught Lorraine's attention. "We take theft very seriously at Briarwood Mall." Lorraine's analytical mind clicked into high gear. Not once had anyone specified what she'd allegedly stolen. No item had been named, no evidence presented. She filed this detail away, adding it to her growing mental catalog of inconsistencies. The officers steered her around a corner, away from the main corridor. Voss suddenly shoved her sideways, slamming her shoulder into the wall. "Need to reposition," he muttered. But his smirk told a different story. The impact sent fresh pain radiating down her arm. Through the glass storefront of a closed shop, Lorraine caught a reflection that made her pulse quicken. Milo's kiosk camera had a perfect angle on this corner. Its steady red light winked at her from the reflection, recording everything. She committed its position to memory, another piece in the puzzle she was assembling. More phones appeared in the crowd. A teenager whispered, "This isn't right." An elderly woman clutched her shopping bags tighter. The air felt thick with tension and the unspoken knowledge that something was very wrong. "Those cuffs are too tight," Denise called out again, her voice shaking but determined. "She's not fighting you. There's no need for this." "Final warning," Rourke snapped at her. "Clear the area or face arrest." Lorraine drew in a steady breath. The time had come to shift the dynamic. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 2 decades on the federal bench. "I am Judge Lorraine Whitaker, Federal Court, Eastern District." The effect was immediate. Both officers froze mid-step, their grips loosening for just a fraction of a second. Voss's face drained of color. The crowd's murmuring grew louder, and more phones rose into the air. Rourke recovered first. His friendly mask cracked, revealing something cold underneath. He leaned in close, his breath hot against Lorraine's ear. "Not here," he whispered, the threat clear in his tone. The corridor lights seemed to brighten, highlighting every face in the crowd. Milo stood rigid behind his kiosk counter, his hands gripping the edge. Denise's phone never wavered, capturing every second. Janice Klein's perfectly maintained composure showed its first crack, a slight twitch at the corner of her mouth. Lorraine kept her chin high, her gaze steady. She had spent years studying human behavior from the bench, learning to read the subtle signals of guilt and fear. Now she saw those same signals in the quick glances between Rourke and Voss, in the way Klein's fingers twisted her jacket button, in the nervous energy radiating from the officer's suddenly tense shoulders. The handcuffs continued their bite into her wrists, but Lorraine focused on memorizing every detail. The exact position of Milo's security camera, the number of witnesses with phones, the slight tremor in Officer Voss's hand that betrayed his uncertainty, the way Rourke's badge caught the light, number 4723 clearly visible. The time displayed on the mall's digital directory, 12:13 p.m. "Your Honor," Denise started to say, but Rourke cut her off with a glare that made her step back again, though her phone remained steady. The crowd had grown larger now, forming a loose semicircle around them. Their whispers created a constant backdrop of tension. Did she say federal judge? Someone call the news. This isn't right. Through it all, Lorraine maintained her composure. She had faced down hardened criminals in her courtroom, dealt with threats and intimidation attempts throughout her career. This was different, more public, more humiliating, but she refused to let them see her rattled. Rourke's grip tightened again, his fingers finding the pressure points on her arm with practiced precision. His earlier mask of professional courtesy had vanished completely, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. The security office door clicked shut with finality. Janice Klein's manicured hand lingered on the handle while Officer Rourke gestured toward a metal chair in the corner. His motion carried the casual cruelty of someone showing a prisoner to their cell. Lorraine scanned the room, her judicial instincts cataloging every detail. The space felt deliberately sparse. Just 2 chairs, a metal desk, and a security camera mounted high in the corner. Its lens pointed at an awkward angle, away from the primary area where detainees would be held. Nothing about this setup was accidental. "Sit!" Rourke commanded, his earlier professional facade completely gone. When Lorraine remained standing, he stepped closer. "Your continued non-compliance and attitude constitutes assault on an officer." Officer Voss pulled out a notepad, clicking his pen with exaggerated focus. His hand moved across the paper, but his eyes never lifted to actually observe what he claimed to be documenting. The scratching of his pen filled the silence. "I request immediate access to your body cam footage," Lorraine stated, her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder. "Both officers' cameras, all mall security footage, and any surveillance covering the store and corridors." Rourke patted his chest where the camera should have been. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Technical glitch today. Real shame. "Our security protocols are very clear," Klein interjected, moving to block Lorraine's access to her phone, which lay on the desk where they'd forced her to place it. "No outside communication during an active investigation." Lorraine kept her breathing even, her mind recording every word and action. "I need the following documented: both officers' names and badge numbers, an incident report number, and immediate medical attention for my shoulder, which was injured during the arrest." "Medical attention isn't necessary at this time," Klein replied smoothly. Her heels clicked against the linoleum as she circled behind Lorraine. "I'm officially requesting it," Lorraine pressed. "Please note the time and date of denial." Voss's pen stopped moving. His knuckles whitened around it. "Now what's this?" Klein's voice carried a note of theatrical surprise. She bent down near Lorraine's purse, which had been placed on the floor. "Officer Rourke, please observe." With latex gloves that appeared too quickly to be spontaneous, Klein lifted a small plastic baggie from beside the purse. She held it up like a trophy. "Illegal substances in addition to theft. This is a very serious situation." Lorraine didn't flinch. Her eyes locked onto every aspect of this performance. The position of the baggie, the timing of its discovery, the way Klein's gloves had been ready in her pocket. Her voice remained absolutely level. "That evidence is planted. I want federal counsel immediately, and I demand preservation of all security footage from this room and the surrounding areas." "Making accusations against officers now?" Rourke clicked his tongue. "That's not going to help your situation." He moved to stand directly in front of her, using his height to loom. "Maybe you're not understanding how much trouble you're in." "I understand exactly what's happening," Lorraine replied. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across their faces. Every word, every action, every procedural violation is being noted. "Big words from someone caught with drugs," Voss muttered, still writing in his notepad, though nothing new had occurred to document. The air conditioning clicked on, sending a blast of cold air through the vents. Lorraine suppressed a shiver, keeping her posture straight, despite the bite of the handcuffs. Her shoulder throbbed where they'd slammed her into the wall, but she used the pain to sharpen her focus. "I'll need copies of the evidence log," Lorraine continued, "including chain of custody documentation, testing protocols." "That's enough," Rourke cut her off. He moved to the door and rapped his knuckles against it in a specific pattern. The door opened immediately, too quickly for it to be a response to his knock. Two uniformed officers stood ready in the hallway, their presence clearly prearranged. Their badges identified them as Officers Mason and Wright, details Lorraine committed to memory. "Our friends here will handle transport," Rourke announced. No hint of apology, no pretense of procedure, just escalation. "Time is 12:47 p.m., Lorraine stated clearly, knowing the room's security camera would catch her words, even if it was aimed away. "I'm being transferred without access to counsel, medical attention, or documentation of planted evidence." "Keep talking," Voss snapped, finally looking up from his notepad. "See how that works out." Klein stepped back to her desk, carefully placing the planted baggie into an evidence envelope with methodical movements. Her practiced calm couldn't quite hide the satisfaction in her expression. Everything was proceeding according to some predetermined script. The new officers moved into the room, taking position on either side of Lorraine. Their hands hovered near their belts, a subtle threat made clear by their positioning. Through the open door, Lorraine could see the empty corridor. They'd cleared it of witnesses. "Last chance to reconsider your attitude," Rourke offered, though his tone made it clear he hoped she wouldn't. When Lorraine remained silent, he nodded to Officers Mason and Wright. "She's all yours." Full processing. The fluorescent lights of Pine Hollow County Jail's intake area cast harsh shadows across Deputy Clerk Shanna Peake's face as she typed Lorraine's information into the computer. Behind the high counter, Officers Rourke and Voss lounged against the wall, their postures relaxed and satisfied. "Stand on the line," Peake instructed, pointing to a worn yellow stripe on the floor. Her voice carried the bored efficiency of someone who'd done this thousands of times. Lorraine stepped forward, her shoulders screaming from the earlier rough handling. The cuffs still bit into her wrists, metal warming against her skin. She kept her expression neutral as Peake snapped the first mugshot. "Turn left." The camera clicked. "Turn right." Another click. "Shoplifting and possession," Voss announced loudly to no one in particular, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Two deputies passing by slowed their walk to listen. "Caught her right in the act at Briarwood Mall." Lorraine noticed how he emphasized the charges, selling the story to everyone within earshot. She filed away his eagerness to shape the narrative. Another piece of evidence in her mental catalog. "Fingerprints," Peake commanded, gesturing to the electronic scanner. The machine hummed as Lorraine pressed each finger to its surface. Left thumb, left index. Each print a further indignity. Each moment stretched to maximize her humiliation. "Empty your pockets," Peake continued, pushing a plastic property bag across the counter. "Jewelry, too. Everything goes in here." Lorraine carefully removed her watch, a gift from her parents when she finished law school, and placed it in the bag. Her wedding ring followed, then her earrings. Each item disappeared into the anonymous container, stripping away another piece of her identity. "I need to make a call to AUSA Nadine Price," Lorraine stated clearly, making sure Peake wrote down the name. "She needs to be notified immediately." Peake's fingers hesitated over her keyboard. Her eyes flickered toward Rourke before she responded. "You can call a public defender later, during designated phone hours." "My shoulder requires medical attention," Lorraine continued, her voice steady. "I need to see a nurse and have my injury documented." "Nurse is unavailable right now," Peake replied, without looking up. "Maybe tomorrow." Rourke pushed off from the wall and approached the counter, leaning in close enough that Lorraine could smell his coffee breath. "Come on, Your Honor," he said, mockery dripping from the title. "You're a federal judge, right? Then you know exactly how this works. Paper beats people. Every time." His confidence was telling. Lorraine observed how Peake's shoulders tensed at his words, how another deputy quickly found somewhere else to be. Their reactions spoke volumes about the power dynamics at play. "Sign here." Peake thrust a form forward, acknowledging surrender of personal property. The pen felt foreign in Lorraine's hand after hours in handcuffs. She signed her name with deliberate precision, maintaining her composure even as Voss snickered behind her. "Processing search," a female deputy announced, stepping forward. She led Lorraine to a small room where dignity became just another surrendered possession. "Change clothes, lift your tongue, turn around, squat, cough." Each command delivered with mechanical indifference. Finally, dressed in an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on her frame, Lorraine was escorted to the holding cell. The heavy door swung open with a metallic groan, revealing a concrete room with metal benches bolted to the walls. Several women sat or lay on the hard surfaces, their faces showing varying degrees of resignation. An older woman with silver hair and kind eyes shifted over on her bench, making space. As Lorraine sat down, the woman leaned closer. "I'm Ruthie Collins," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the cell block's ambient noise. "Saw them bring you in from the mall." Lorraine nodded slightly, encouraging but careful. "It's a pipeline, you know," Ruthie continued, her eyes darting to check if anyone was listening. "Same officers, same script, every time. They grab folks at the mall, mostly black shoppers, always saying the same things: concealment, resistance, additional charges found during search." The information aligned with patterns Lorraine had already begun to notice. She listened intently as Ruthie spoke, each detail adding another piece to the puzzle. "My granddaughter got caught in it last month." Ruthie's voice cracked slightly. "Lost her job, couldn't make bail. Took a plea deal just to get home to her kids." Outside the holding cell, a guard's boots clicked against the floor during rounds. The windowless room gave no indication of time passing, but the changing shift deputies suggested evening was falling. Overhead, the fluorescent lights buzzed incessantly, their harsh glare unchanging. Lorraine sat straight on the uncomfortable bench, her judge's posture intact despite her circumstances. Her shoulder throbbed in time with her pulse, but she used the pain to focus. In her mind, she began assembling her case, fact by fact, violation by violation. The same officers, the same script, the same outcome. She could see the pattern forming, clear as a legal brief. Each detail Ruthie shared matched another piece of evidence Lorraine had gathered throughout the day. A heavy steel door slammed somewhere in the building, the sound echoing through the concrete corridors. Lorraine closed her eyes briefly, but her mind kept working, building her case line by line. The fluorescent lights flickered in the holding area as footsteps approached. Lorraine looked up to see Public Defender Evan Sloan hurrying toward her cell, his tie askew and briefcase clutched awkwardly under one arm. The guard unlocked the heavy door with a metallic clang. "Judge Whitaker," Evan said, his voice low and rushed. "I came as soon as I could. Let's talk over here." He gestured to a small interview room adjacent to the holding area. The room was barely bigger than a closet, with 2 plastic chairs and a scratched metal table bolted to the floor. The walls held years of scuff marks and desperate etchings. Lorraine sat down carefully, mindful of her aching shoulder. "Look," Evan began, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I know this is unpleasant, but I think we can make this go away quickly. A simple misunderstanding. No headlines needed. They're willing to—" "No," Lorraine said quietly but firmly. Her voice carried the same measured tone she used in her courtroom. "I need you to document everything I'm about to tell you, Mr. Sloan. Word for word." Evan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Judge Whitaker, please understand." At approximately 12:03 p.m., Lorraine continued, her words precise and clear. "Officers Rourke and Voss began following me through Briarwood Mall. They maintained surveillance without cause or announcement. At 12:27, they intercepted me in the main corridor." She watched as Evan reluctantly pulled out a legal pad. His pen hovered over the yellow paper. "Officer Voss grabbed my right arm and twisted it behind my back with excessive force, causing injury to my shoulder. This occurred before any statement of charges or rights. Security Director Janice Klein then appeared and made vague claims about missing merchandise, never specifying what item was allegedly taken." "Judge, maybe we should—" "In the security office," Lorraine pressed on. "Both officers claimed their body cameras had malfunctioned. Director Klein blocked my phone access. A small bag of suspicious material appeared near my purse after I was already detained. The placement was staged, Mr. Sloan. The timing is documentable." Evan's pen moved across the page, but his face showed growing anxiety. Sweat beaded on his forehead under the harsh lighting. "I need you to file immediate preservation orders for all mall security footage, radio communications, and incident reports," Lorraine stated. "We also need affidavits from witnesses in the corridor, particularly the kiosk vendor and a bystander who attempted to intervene." That's a lot to process," Evan stammered. "The local courts might not—" "Please contact AUSA Nadine Price," Lorraine interrupted smoothly, "and retired Detective Elijah Boone. They're both familiar with federal evidence procedures in civil rights matters." The mention of federal involvement made Evan's pen stop moving. He glanced nervously at the door. "Judge Whitaker, there's considerable local pressure to handle this." "Internally," he admitted, lowering his voice further. Lorraine leaned forward slightly, her expression unchanged. "Mr. Sloan, are you familiar with Torres v. Madrid regarding excessive force? Or Strand v. Minchuk on qualified immunity limits? What about Federal Statute 18 U.S.C., Paragraph 1519, on evidence tampering?" Each citation landed like a quiet hammer blow. Evan's resistance visibly crumbled as she continued listing relevant case law and criminal codes, all from memory, all precisely applicable to the day's events. I'll make those calls," he conceded, scribbling additional notes. Heavy footsteps approached before Evan could say more. A guard appeared in the doorway, his face set in practiced indifference. "Time's up," he announced. "Prisoner needs to move for classification." "We're not finished," Evan protested weakly. Yeah, you are. Officer Voss stepped into view behind the guard, already reaching for his handcuffs. The cuffs snapped around Lorraine's wrists again, tighter than necessary. Voss grabbed her arm and steered her roughly down a series of corridors, away from the main holding area. Each turn took them deeper into the building's maze of control and isolation. "Think you're pretty smart, huh?" Voss muttered close to her ear as they walked. His fingers dug into her arm. "Throwing around case numbers and big names?" He suddenly twisted the cuffs, making the metal bite into her skin. "But you can't judge what you can't survive." Lorraine didn't flinch. Instead, she studied his face with deliberate attention. The slight scar above his right eyebrow, the uneven stubble along his jaw, the way his left eye twitched when he made threats. Each detail was another piece of evidence, carefully stored away. They stopped at a heavy door marked Administrative Segregation. The cell beyond was smaller and darker than the holding area, with no bench, just a thin mat on a concrete shelf. The temperature was noticeably colder. Voss shoved her inside with unnecessary force. The door slammed shut with a hollow boom that echoed through the empty corridor, leaving Lorraine alone in the chill and dim light. The jail's parking lot was nearly empty when AUSA Nadine Price's sedan pulled in, its headlights cutting through the late evening darkness. She pressed her phone against her ear while gathering her briefcase. "Elijah, I need you at Pine Hollow County right now," she said, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "They've got Judge Whitaker in holding on manufactured charges. Yes, that Judge Whitaker." The front desk was staffed by a heavy-set deputy who barely glanced up from his crossword puzzle when Nadine approached. Her heels clicked sharply against the worn linoleum floor. "Federal prosecutor here to see Judge Lorraine Whitaker," she announced, placing her credentials on the counter. The deputy didn't touch them. "No federal business here, local matter." "That's incorrect," Nadine replied evenly. "I'm invoking supervisory access under federal statute. I need to see your visitor logs, holding records, and medical request documentation for the past 12 hours. Like I said, would you prefer I call the U.S. Marshal's office?" Nadine interrupted, already reaching for her phone. "They can explain the protocol while serving paperwork." The deputy's face tightened. He picked up his desk phone, muttering into it while shooting her sullen looks. After a tense 5 minutes, a supervisor appeared, Lieutenant Myers, according to his nameplate. "Ms. Price," he said with forced politeness, "this is highly irregular at this hour." "That's exactly why I'm here, Lieutenant. Now, about those records." The front door opened, bringing in a blast of cool night air. Elijah Boone stepped inside, his weathered face calm but alert. Despite being retired, he carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of a career detective. His eyes swept the room, noting cameras, exits, and the nervous tension in the staff's posture. "Evening," he said quietly, moving to stand near Nadine. His presence seemed to shift the atmosphere. Several deputies recognized him, their expressions uncertain. Lieutenant Myers cleared his throat. "Fine. 20 minutes. Supervised visit only. No recording devices." The processing took another 10 minutes. Forms, ID checks, metal detector sweeps. Nadine noticed how the staff kept finding one more thing to verify, stretching out each step. Finally, they were led to a visitor booth. Lorraine sat on the other side of the thick glass, her back straight despite the institutional orange jumpsuit. Her wrists were visibly swollen where the cuffs had been too tight, but her face showed no trace of distress. "Judge Whitaker," Nadine began, lifting the phone receiver. "Thank you for coming, Nadine," Lorraine said calmly. "We need to move quickly. The mall has extensive security coverage. I saw at least 12 cameras in the main corridor alone. We need preservation orders before any footage disappears." Nadine pulled out her notepad. "Give me everything." "Focus on the IT access logs first," Lorraine continued. Check for any system entries or deletions between noon and now. The body cams supposedly malfunctioned. Get activation records for Units 47 and 53, Officers Rourke and Voss. There were multiple 911 calls from witnesses in the corridor. Request those recordings and dispatch logs. Boone leaned closer to the glass. This isn't their first operation, he said softly. I've been tracking complaint patterns. The mall has a special security partnership with the department. Officers get overtime for dedicated patrols, but the real money's in civil forfeiture. Cash, cars, anything they can claim is connected to criminal activity. And quiet settlements, Lorraine added. Notice how quickly they offered a deal? There's a pattern of targeted stops followed by pressure to accept plea bargains. The machine runs on fear and speed. Process people through before they can fight back. Nadine's pen moved steadily across the page. I can get an emergency hearing scheduled, but they'll push back hard once they realize we're going federal. This isn't just a few bad officers. It's systemic. I know, Lorraine said. Her voice remained measured, but her eyes were sharp. They'll retaliate. Probably tonight. They need to control the narrative before morning. Let me post officers, Boone started. No, Lorraine cut him off. Let them move. Every action they take is evidence. Every person they pressure becomes a witness. Document everything. Nadine studied her friend's face through the glass. Despite being locked up, despite the bruises forming on her wrists, Lorraine was already 3 steps ahead, turning her own arrest into a case that could tear down the entire operation. 20 minutes are up, a guard announced from the doorway. I'll start the paperwork tonight, Nadine promised, standing. First thing tomorrow. They'll transfer me before then, Lorraine predicted calmly. Probably to isolation. Cut off contact, claim security protocols, standard pressure tactics. Boone's jaw tightened. I know some people who... No, Lorraine said again. By the book. Everything by the book. That's how we beat them. The guard stepped forward impatiently. Nadine gathered her notes, mind already racing through jurisdiction challenges and emergency motions. They were escorted back through the maze of security checkpoints. As they emerged into the parking lot, the night seemed darker than before. Through the jail's reinforced windows, they could hear the distant sound of heavy doors opening and closing, movement in the cell blocks, pieces being positioned in the dark. Early morning sunlight slanted through Briarwood Mall's glass doors as Elijah Boone entered, his casual stride masking deliberate observation. He wore jeans and a weathered leather jacket, blending with the morning crowd of mall walkers and early shoppers. His trained eye traced the ceiling lines, noting every visible security camera and calculating their overlap zones. The mall felt different in the morning light. Sterile, staged, with overnight cleaning crews erasing yesterday's chaos. Security guards stood at their posts, earpieces in place, watching him without watching him. Boone recognized the dance. They knew who he was, just as he knew they'd report his presence up the chain. He paused at a directory, using its reflection to spot the cameras he couldn't openly study. That's when he noticed Milo Garner at his kiosk, arranging phone cases with nervous energy. The young vendor's eyes kept darting toward Boone, recognition clear in his tense posture. Boone browsed closer, pretending to examine merchandise. Nice selection, he said quietly. Milo's hands trembled slightly as he straightened a display. I saw what they did to her, he whispered. The judge. It wasn't right. No, it wasn't. Boone picked up a phone case, turning it over casually. Your kiosk has a good view of the corridor. They already came for my footage. Milo's voice was barely audible. Security team. This morning. Said it was protocol. Did you give it to them? Had to. But... Milo glanced around, then bent to adjust a lower shelf. I keep backups. The camera catches everything in the glass storefront reflections. like a mirror. Boone set down the phone case and reached into his jacket, sliding a small external drive onto the counter. Copy everything from yesterday. All angles. Then hide the original somewhere safe. Ms. Klein watches everything, Milo said, his voice shaking. If they find out. They won't. You're just doing inventory work on your computer. Nothing suspicious. While Milo nervously began the file transfer, Boone's phone buzzed. A text from Nadine. Mall claims system crash. All footage corrupted after routine update. Convenient timing. Inside the county jail, Lorraine sat perfectly still on her narrow bunk, cataloging the growing stiffness in her shoulder. The medical request she'd submitted last night sat untouched on the desk outside her cell. She'd watched 3 shifts of guards ignore it. Officer Voss appeared for his morning rounds, stopping at her cell. He dragged his baton across the bars. Tap, tap, tap. A slow, deliberate rhythm designed to fray nerves. Sleep well, Your Honor? His voice dripped mock courtesy. Bet that shoulder's feelin' real judicial right about now. Lorraine didn't respond. She noted the time, his exact words, his body language, building her case with each small cruelty. In the next cell, Ruthie Collins watched with tired eyes. When Voss finally moved on, she spoke softly through the wall. They always win, she said. You file complaints. Witnesses disappear. Statements get misplaced. Evidence goes missing. People learn it's easier to look away. That's why we document everything, Lorraine replied calmly. She moved closer to the wall. Listen carefully, Ruthie. Get something to write with. I'm going to teach you how to build a record they can't ignore. For the next hour, Lorraine quietly explained her system. Times, names, badge numbers, exact quotes. How to note patterns, preserve details, transform memory into evidence. Ruthie listened, absorbing each detail like rain in desert soil. Back at the mall, Milo's hands steadied as he finished the file transfer. It's all there, he whispered. Yesterday's footage, all angles, the whole thing. Good man, Boone said, pocketing the drive. He left a business card hidden under a display stand. If anything happens, if anyone pressures you, I know. Milo straightened his shoulders slightly. Do inventory work. Stay calm. Keep records. Boone nodded and walked away, maintaining his casual shopper's pace. He felt the security cameras tracking him, noticed the guards speaking into their radios. At his car, he secured the drive in a hidden compartment. As he pulled out of the mall parking lot, his rearview mirror caught a dark sedan pulling out 3 cars behind him. Amateur tail work. They wanted him to know he was being followed. Boone checked the mirror again. The sedan matched pace, keeping exactly 3 cars between them. The evening air felt heavy as Boone turned onto his street. 20 years of detective work had taught him to spot wrong patterns, and everything about this night felt deliberately wrong. His headlights swept across his front yard, catching the glint of broken glass where his porch light should have been. A police cruiser idled at the corner, its engine a low growl in the darkness. Boone pulled into his driveway with measured calm. He reached for his phone, opened his camera app, and began documenting. First, the cruiser, license plate partially visible in the streetlight. Then, the fresh tire tracks in his lawn, cutting dark paths through the evening dew. His movements were unhurried, precise. This wasn't his first warning rodeo. The phone rang twice before Nadine answered. They're moving faster than we expected, he said, keeping his voice low. Are you safe? Nadine's tone was sharp, professional. For now. But they're not being subtle anymore. Boone walked the perimeter of his house, photographing everything. Got visitors while I was out. Smashed porch light, tire tracks in the yard. Cruisers watching me take pictures right now. He heard Nadine's intake of breath, the sound of papers shuffling. Document everything. I'm calling in some favors. We need federal eyes on this before it escalates. Inside his house, Boone moved efficiently. He activated the security system he'd installed years ago. Cameras covering every approach, motion sensors at key points. Old habits from old cases had taught him to be ready. On his kitchen table, centered like an accusation, lay a crisp white envelope. The trespass notice inside was printed on Briarwood Mall letterhead, warning him to stay away from mall property under threat of arrest. The paper felt expensive, official. But the message was pure street-level intimidation dressed in legal clothing. "They sent me a love letter," he told Nadine, photographing the notice. "Mall's trying to box me out formally. Guess they didn't like me talking to their vendors." "They're panicking," Nadine said. "I'm filing an emergency motion first thing tomorrow." This level of intimidation means we're closer than they want us to be. Meanwhile, at the county jail, Lorraine sat perfectly straight as the night nurse finally examined her shoulder. The woman's hands were professionally cool, her expression carefully blank. "Minor discomfort," she murmured, reaching for her clipboard. "No visible—" "Pardon me," Lorraine interrupted softly. "But I believe you can see the bruising along the deltoid and trapezius. The discoloration suggests deep tissue trauma consistent with forceful restraint. Would you agree that's a more accurate description?" The nurse paused, pen hovering. Lorraine held her gaze steadily, neither challenging nor submissive, just clear, precise, and impossible to dismiss. "I suppose that would be more specific," the nurse admitted, crossing out her first notation. "And the time of initial injury was approximately 12:45 p.m. yesterday," Lorraine continued, "with aggravation at 1:30 p.m. during transport. The delay in medical attention, roughly 30 hours, should probably be noted as well." Each fact landed like a gentle tap, building a record the nurse couldn't minimize without obvious falsification. Lorraine watched as the woman rewrote her assessment, this time with clinical accuracy. When her cell phone privileges were restored for her one allowed call, Nadine's voice carried barely contained anger. The lab rushed their analysis of that baggie, came back positive, of course. "Who signed the chain of custody forms?" Lorraine asked immediately, her voice calm. "What?" "The evidence handling documentation. Who touched it? When? Where was it stored? Did they note the exact location it was found? Did Officer Rourke handle it directly? Or did Security Director Klein? Were photographs taken before it was moved?" Understanding dawned in Nadine's tone. "You're mapping their procedural violations. Every rushed step leaves a trace," Lorraine said quietly. "Every shortcut breaks a rule. They're using bureaucracy as a weapon, but bureaucracy cuts both ways. Pull those handling records, compare timestamps, check authorization levels." In his darkened living room, Boone watched his security monitors. The cruiser had circled his block twice more, moving slower each time. His cameras tracked it, recording every pass. The third time, the car noticed the small red recording lights on his external cameras. The engine revved, and the cruiser accelerated away into the night. Boone picked up the trespass notice again, studying its watermark under a UV light. Genuine mall letterhead, but the signature was hurried, stressed. Someone following orders they weren't comfortable with. He added it to his growing evidence file, along with timestamps of the cruiser's visits. His phone lit up with a text from Nadine. "Emergency hearing scheduled for 9 a.m. Bring everything." The house settled into midnight silence, but Boone kept his cameras running. They had shown their hand too early, too aggressively. Now, every intimidation attempt would become another piece of evidence, another brick in the wall they were building around themselves. 2 days of concrete and steel had left marks on Lorraine's wrists, but not her resolve. Now, in a small coffee shop 3 towns over, Nadine watched as boutique clerk Tessa Hargrove sank into the corner booth, her hands wrapped around an untouched cup of tea. "Take your time," Nadine said softly. The morning crowd provided cover noise, and Boone's steady presence by the door kept watch for familiar faces. "Just tell me what happened." Tessa's fingers trembled against the ceramic. She couldn't have been more than 25, her name tag still pinned to her shirt from an earlier shift. "Ms. Klein came to the stockroom before opening that day. She said we needed to be ready for a special loss prevention exercise." "What exactly did she tell you?" "That we should watch for a specific customer. That when she gave the signal, we needed to report a missing item." Tessa's voice cracked. She made it sound official, like a training drill. "But then I saw them grab that woman in the hallway, and her face—" Tessa stopped, swallowing hard. Nadine slid a tissue box closer. "Did Ms. Klein tell you which item was supposedly missing?" "That's just it." Tessa reached into her bag, pulling out a folded stack of papers. Nothing was missing. "I printed these this morning before I left. The inventory report, the receipt log, everything. It all balances perfectly. There was never any theft." Nadine examined the documents. Clean timestamps, system-generated data. Irrefutable proof that the entire accusation was manufactured. "I should have said something right then," Tessa whispered. "But the way those officers acted, and Ms. Klein kept watching us, reminding us about protocol and team security." "You're saying something now," Nadine assured her. "That matters." Boone approached their table carefully, a laptop balanced in one hand. "You need to see this," he said quietly. He set the screen down, playing a video clip. The angle was odd, a reflection in storefront glass, but the quality was clear enough. It showed Lorraine walking calmly, the officers moving in before any store employee had reported anything, before any investigation could have possibly occurred. "The timing proves premeditation," Nadine said, making notes. They were waiting for her. It took 40 minutes to complete Tessa's sworn statement. Every detail, every instruction from Klein, every moment documented with precision. When they finished, something had shifted in the air. For the first time since this started, victory felt possible. That afternoon, Lorraine walked out of county jail on supervised bond. Her suit was wrinkled, her shoulders still tender, but her spine was straight as steel. She met Nadine and Boone in a private law office, immediately commandeering a whiteboard. "Show me everything," she said, uncapping a marker. Her hand moved with judicial efficiency, creating a timeline that spread across the white surface. Video timestamps, witness statements, security logs, each piece found its place in the growing pattern. "Here," she pointed to a cluster of times. "Klein's protocol briefing happens before any possible theft. The officers initiate contact before any report is filed. The body cams deactivate in sequence, not by malfunction." Her marker connected points, revealing the orchestration behind the chaos. "We have enough," Nadine said, studying the board. "With Tessa's testimony—" "Tessa is their weak point," Lorraine interrupted. Her voice was calm, but certain. "They'll come for her first. Standard pressure tactics, workplace harassment, selective scheduling, suspicious incidents in the parking lot. Then escalation, home visits, vehicle tampering, anonymous threats. I have seen this pattern in dozens of cases. I can arrange protection," Nadine started. "Not local," Boone cut in. "Too many shared interests between mall security and the department. They'll know every safe house, every routine." Lorraine nodded. "We need redundancy. Multiple copies of every document, stored in multiple locations. Video backups on secure servers. Sworn statements filed in separate jurisdictions." She drew circles around key points on the timeline. "They'll try to break the chain of evidence. We need to make that impossible." They worked through the afternoon, building layers of protection around their case. Nadine coordinated with federal offices in other districts. Boone established secure drops for evidence copies. Lorraine mapped every possible point of attack, designing countermeasures for each. As evening settled over the city, Nadine's phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. "Someone from mall security just came to my apartment." Nadine typed back immediately, "Are you safe? Do not open the door." The message showed as delivered. "Read." But no response came. They waited in tense silence. 1 minute, 2, 5. Tessa's icon remained stubbornly silent. The night air hung heavy as Nadine's car pulled into Tessa's apartment complex. Security lights cast harsh shadows across empty parking spaces, and somewhere a dog barked in the distance. Boone's vehicle settled in beside hers, his headlights cutting off with a finality that made her stomach tighten. 3rd floor, apartment 312. The door stood slightly ajar, wood splintered near the lock. A neighbor peeked out, then quickly shut their door when Nadine made eye contact. "Federal prosecutor," Nadine announced, holding up her credentials. "We need to speak with anyone who saw or heard anything in the last few hours." Silence answered. Closed doors. Drawn curtains. The hallway felt like a tomb of selective blindness. Inside Tessa's apartment, the scene told its own story. Drawers hung open, clothes scattered across the floor. A chair lay overturned near the kitchen counter. The air still held the sharp scent of fear. "Over here," Boone called from the kitchen. He held up Tessa's phone, or what remained of it. Screen shattered, case cracked, retrieved from beneath coffee grounds in the trash. They wanted it to look rushed, but this was methodical. Nadine documented everything with her camera. Empty hangers in the closet, half-empty coffee cup still warm on the counter, a damp towel in the bathroom. Someone had been here recently, living normally, until they weren't. The property manager arrived wearing carefully constructed confusion. "Ms. Hargrove terminated her lease this evening," he said, consulting a tablet. "Paid the penalty in cash. Said it was a family emergency." "Did she mention which family?" Nadine asked. "Or where she was going?" "Privacy policy," the manager replied smoothly. "But everything's properly documented. I'll need those documents, all of them. Of course, after we process the proper subpoena requests." By morning, the machinery of obstruction was in full motion. Nadine sat in court, watching the mall's attorney present a wall of procedural deflection. The security footage? Tragically corrupted during routine system maintenance. Tessa's employment records? Protected by privacy regulations. The body cam footage? Technical difficulties affected the entire department that day. What an unfortunate coincidence. "Your Honor," the mall's attorney said, "Ms. Hargrove has a history of unreliable statements and employment instability. Her departure simply confirms this pattern." Nadine fought back with every legal tool available. "The timing of this alleged corruption is beyond suspicious. We have a witness who provided sworn testimony about systematic abuse, and within hours she vanishes? This requires immediate preservation orders and—" "Speculation," the mall's attorney interrupted. "People move, systems update, without direct evidence of tampering." The judge, a local fixture with decades of connections, nodded sympathetically at the mall's position. Every motion felt like punching through concrete. In a secure conference room, Lorraine sat with perfect posture despite exhaustion shadowing her eyes. The weight of it all pressed down. The system protecting itself, witnesses vanishing, evidence disappearing into convenient black holes. For just a moment, her fingers tensed against the polished table. Then method reasserted itself. She pulled a legal pad closer, began writing in precise lines. "What can't be recovered must be replaced. They're eliminating single points of failure. So we build redundancy." "I might have something," Boone said, setting up his laptop. Remember Denise Harper, the woman who tried to intervene in the mall? She was live streaming to her social media. Caught the whole initial confrontation, including Rourke's first accusation, before anyone from the store even claimed anything was missing. The video played Rourke's aggressive approach, his rehearsed accusation, the calculated humiliation. All of it captured raw and unedited, with timestamps intact. Nadine straightened. This gives us grounds to federalize the entire case. Civil rights violations, conspiracy, witness tampering. A knock interrupted them. The county's attorney entered, carrying a manila envelope like a peace offering. "Judge Whitaker," he said, his smile professionally concerned. "We've prepared a resolution that serves everyone's interests. Simple probation, no jail time. A quiet resignation to protect the dignity of the bench. The charges sealed after completion." The deal landed on the table between them. A clean escape route, a way to make it all disappear. Lorraine studied the papers without touching them. Her voice, when it came, carried the weight of every judge who'd ever stood against corruption. "No." She turned to Nadine, eyes clear and hard as diamond. "Then, we take everything." The county's attorney shifted uncomfortably. "Judge Whitaker, please consider." "That will be all," Lorraine said. The judicial authority in her tone could have stripped paint from walls. The attorney retreated, leaving the unsigned deal behind like abandoned ammunition. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of May's Corner Diner, casting long shadows across the worn leather booths. Lorraine sat with her back to the wall, a position that offered a clear view of both entrances. Her coffee remained untouched, steam rising in lazy spirals. Outside, Boone's weathered sedan was parked strategically, giving him sight lines to every approach. He'd arrived an hour early to sweep the area, watching for the familiar Crown Vics that marked police surveillance. Denise Harper entered exactly on time, clutching her purse close to her body. Her eyes darted around the diner before settling on Lorraine. Despite her obvious nervousness, there was determination in her stride as she approached the booth. "Thank you for meeting me," Lorraine said, her voice carrying the same measured calm she'd maintained in the mall corridor. "I almost didn't come," Denise admitted, sliding into the opposite seat. Her hands trembled slightly as she set her phone on the table. "But what they did to you? I couldn't sleep after seeing it. That officer, the way he grabbed you. I need you to focus on exact details," Lorraine guided gently. "Not how it felt, but what you saw and heard, word for word." Denise nodded, steadying herself. "I started recording when I heard Officer Rourke, the older one, shout about theft. His exact words were, 'Ma'am, you're under arrest for shoplifting.' But no one from any store was even there yet. And Officer Voss? He grabbed your arm before finishing his sentence. I got it all on video. The way he twisted it up behind your back while saying, 'Stop resisting.' But you weren't. You were just standing there, asking to speak to management." Lorraine took notes in precise handwriting, each detail a brick in the foundation she was building. "Did you capture any badge numbers? Timestamps?" "The live stream has everything. Timestamps, location data. I never stopped recording, even when Rourke threatened to arrest me too." Denise pulled up the video file, her anger more evident now. "He said I was interfering with police business and should mind my own business if I knew what was good for me." Outside, Boone shifted in his car, tracking a slow-moving vehicle that passed the diner twice. His phone buzzed with a text. A contact had come through with information about Raj Patel, the former mall IT technician. Inside, Lorraine continued her methodical questioning. When Security Director Klein arrived, what exactly did she claim was stolen? "That's just it," she never said. She kept repeating missing inventory and security protocol, but never named an actual item. It felt rehearsed. Did you capture the moment they claimed to find the evidence in the security office? No, they'd already taken you inside, but I have clear footage of them leading you there. Officer Voss was smirking the whole time, like it was some kind of game to him. Lorraine's phone vibrated. A message from Boone. Raj Patel had agreed to meet. He claimed to have documentation of specific deletion requests coming directly from Klein's terminal during his final weeks as the mall's IT support. "One last thing," Lorraine said, looking directly at Denise. "Are you prepared to testify? They will try to discredit you, dig through your past, possibly threaten your job." Denise squared her shoulders. "I've been an assistant principal for 15 years. I've seen bullies operate. They count on people looking away, staying quiet. Not this time." As if on cue, Nadine arrived, carrying a thick folder of draft subpoenas. She slid into the booth next to Lorraine, nodding professionally to Denise. "We're moving on multiple fronts," Nadine explained quietly. "Subpoenas for all IT logs, employee access records, security camera mounting specifications. Every entry and exit from that security office will be documented." Lorraine studied the papers, her mind mapping out the coming legal battle like a chess master, seeing 10 moves ahead. She anticipated their defensive moves, claims of reasonable suspicion, allegations of resisting arrest, convenient technical malfunctions. But now she had counters. Denise's time-stamped video showing the arrest began before any theft was reported. Soon, they'd have Raj's access logs proving deliberate evidence deletion. The security office camera placement would reveal blind spots they'd exploited. "They'll claim you were combative," Nadine warned. "It's their standard defense." "The video shows otherwise," Denise interjected. She was completely calm. "They were the aggressive ones." Lorraine gathered her notes, each page filled with precise details that would dismantle their fabricated narrative. Outside, Boone signaled all clear. No tails had stayed to watch the meeting. As evening approached, they finalized their immediate steps. Denise transferred copies of the live stream to secure drives. Nadine prepared to file the subpoenas first thing in the morning. Lorraine reviewed every document, looking for gaps their opponents might exploit. Then, Nadine's phone lit up with a text from Raj. "I have proof it wasn't corruption. It was deletion." The law office conference room felt like a fortress. Blinds drawn tight against the afternoon sun. Raj Patel sat hunched over his laptop, fingers moving with practiced precision across the keyboard. His former IT badge, still active in the mall's system, hung around his neck like a trophy. "See these timestamps?" He pointed to rows of access data scrolling across his screen. "That's Klein's login credentials accessing the security server at 2:47 p.m., exactly 12 minutes after they took Judge Whitaker to the office." Lorraine leaned forward, studying the logs with the same attention she gave legal briefs. "Walk me through the technical process. How can you verify these are authentic?" "Each access creates an encrypted hash, like a digital fingerprint," Raj explained, pulling up another window. "You can't fake these without leaving traces. The system logs every keystroke, every file operation." Nadine took detailed notes while Boone watched from near the door, his stance relaxed but alert. The retired detective's eyes never stopped scanning for movement beyond the frosted glass. "Show me the deletion sequence," Lorraine requested, her voice steady. Raj nodded, pulling up a new screen. "Look here. They didn't just delete files. They created gaps, then triggered a system diagnostic that marked those segments as corrupted. It's clever, but sloppy. The timestamps don't match their story." "Can you authenticate these logs under oath?" Nadine asked, already thinking about admissibility. "That's why I kept my security access active," Raj said. "I knew something was wrong when Klein started asking for selective deletions last month. Started documenting everything after that. Lorraine gestured to a particular timestamp. This deletion pattern, it's methodical. They knew exactly which segments to target. Because they've done this before, Boone spoke up from his position. That tail vehicle I spotted last night? County Unit 247, assigned to community policing. They use it to send messages, make problems go away. Nadine spread 3 pieces of evidence across the conference table. Denise's live stream screenshots, Milo's kiosk reflection captures, and now Raj's access logs. Together, they formed an unbreakable triangle of truth. The timing proves premeditation, Lorraine observed, arranging the evidence chronologically. They were waiting for me specifically. About that, Nadine said, pulling out a sealed court document. I found out why. You were quietly assigned to hear United States versus Pine Hollow County next month, a federal corruption case involving their asset seizure program. The room went silent as the pieces clicked into place. Lorraine's public humiliation wasn't random harassment. It was calculated character assassination. They needed to destroy my credibility before I could hear that case, Lorraine said, her calm never wavering. The mall arrest was their perfect stage. Public, chaotic, easy to control the narrative. Boone moved closer to the table. Rourke and Voss are their enforcers. They've been running this playbook for years, targeting people who might expose the system. But they've never targeted a federal judge before, Nadine added, pulling out preliminary warrant applications. That's how we get jurisdiction. Civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to interfere with federal proceedings. Raj transferred his logs to encrypted drives while Lorraine studied the warrant language. Her legal mind dissected each paragraph, ensuring every charge was airtight. The technical evidence supports criminal intent, she noted. Raj's logs show deliberate concealment, not system failure. That elevates the obstruction charges. I'll testify about the deletion patterns, Raj offered. Show exactly how they manipulated the system to cover their tracks. Outside the conference room, the law office had grown quiet as evening approached. Somewhere across the city, federal agents were quietly preparing service papers, building their own net around the conspirators. Lorraine arranged the evidence in precise order, each piece supporting the next. Denise's live stream established the timeline. Milo's reflection footage caught their aggressive approach. Raj's logs proved the cover-up. Together, they revealed a machine that had finally overreached. They thought the mall arrest would be simple, Boone observed. Public space, lots of witnesses, their word against yours. Instead, they gave us a perfect case study in systematic abuse, Nadine added, organizing her files. Every step they took to hide evidence just proves the pattern. As night fell outside the blinds, Lorraine began mapping out her courtroom strategy. Her methodology remained unchanged, precise, deliberate, focused. She wouldn't just expose individual corruption. She would dismantle the entire mechanism that enabled it. We document everything, she instructed, her voice carrying the same measured control she'd maintained since the mall corridor. Every denial of medical care, every threatened witness, every manipulated record. The pattern itself becomes evidence. The conference room took on the atmosphere of a war room. Evidence arranged like battle plans across the polished table. Federal agents across the city prepared to move. Warrant papers ready for service. Lorraine sat at the center of it all, calm as stone, building her case with the same precision they had tried to use against her. The morning sun cast long shadows across the federal courthouse steps as reporters clustered with cameras and microphones raised. Judge Lorraine Whitaker ascended the stairs between AUSA Nadine Price and Elijah Boone, her posture straight despite the lingering stiffness in her shoulder. She wore a charcoal suit rather than judicial robes. Today she was the witness, not the authority. Judge Whitaker, Any comment on the allegations? A reporter thrust a microphone forward. Lorraine kept walking, maintaining the same measured calm she'd shown in the mall corridor. Nadine deflected questions with practiced skill, while Boone's steady presence created a buffer between them and the press corps. Inside the courthouse lobby, Officer Dale Rourke and Officer Trent Voss strutted through security, badges displayed prominently. Their confidence seemed rehearsed, performative. Behind them, Janice Klein entered flanked by two polished attorneys from Hartman and Ross, the county's go-to defense firm. Her corporate smile never wavered. "All rise!" The bailiff's voice filled courtroom 3 as Judge Harold Martinez took the bench. The gallery was packed. Activists, community members, and more press squeezed into every available seat. Lorraine sat at the prosecution table beside Nadine, her hands folded precisely on her notepad. She'd been in this courtroom dozens of times, but never from this angle. The familiar elevated bench now loomed before her instead of supporting her. Judge Martinez cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, I must address a matter of judicial ethics." He shuffled papers on his bench. "I have become aware of prior professional relationships with several Pine Hollow County officials that could create an appearance of conflict. In the interest of absolute propriety, I am formally recusing myself from these proceedings." A low murmur rippled through the gallery. Rourke and Voss exchanged glances, while Klein leaned to whisper to her attorneys. "The case will be immediately reassigned to Chief Judge Eleanor Avery," Martinez continued. "She has cleared her calendar to hear this matter given its urgent nature." Within minutes, Judge Avery swept into the courtroom. Her reputation preceded her. 30 years on the federal bench, known for constitutional precision and zero tolerance for governmental overreach. Her sharp eyes surveyed the room as she took her seat. "Ms. Price, you may proceed with your evidentiary presentation," Judge Avery directed. Nadine rose smoothly. "Your Honor, the government submits 4 key pieces of evidence. First, authenticated mall IT access logs showing deliberate deletion of security footage using Ms. Klein's credentials. She placed the printed logs on the evidence cart. Second, a live stream video captured by witness Denise Harper showing the initial confrontation, demonstrating no probable cause existed before the officers detained Judge Whitaker. The defense table stirred as Nadine continued. Third, security camera reflections captured by mall vendor Milo Garner's kiosk, showing the physical force used during the detention. And fourth, a detailed technical affidavit from former mall IT specialist Raj Patel authenticating the deletion patterns and timestamps. Klein's lead attorney shot to his feet. "Your Honor, we object to this allegedly technical evidence. These could easily be fabricated logs created after the fact." "Your Honor," Nadine countered, "Mr. Patel's affidavit includes blockchain verification of the log authenticity. Additionally, Ms. Harper's livestream was broadcast in real time to multiple social media platforms, making tampering impossible." Judge Avery studied the evidence summaries. "Objection noted, but overruled at this stage. These materials raise sufficient probable cause concerns to proceed." She looked up sharply. "I'm setting this for expedited trial in 2 weeks. Additionally, I'll approve the government's request for expanded obstruction warrants based on the deletion evidence." Lorraine remained still at the prosecution table, her face composed. She watched Rourke's confidence crack slightly as Judge Avery detailed the accelerated timeline. Voss shifted in his chair while Klein's attorneys scribbled urgent notes. "One final matter," Judge Avery added. "Given the evidence of systematic misconduct, I'm ordering all related Pine Hollow County records preserved immediately. Any further deletion or alteration of potential evidence will result in severe sanctions." The hearing concluded with rapid efficiency. As participants filed out of the courtroom, Lorraine noticed unmarked federal vehicles pulling away from the courthouse. agents heading out to serve the newly approved warrants across Pine Hollow County. Rourke and Voss pushed through the courthouse doors into a wall of cameras, their earlier swagger diminished. Klein's attorneys hustled her toward a waiting SUV, while reporters shouted questions about deleted footage and falsified reports. Inside, Lorraine gathered her notes with the same precise movements she used in her own courtroom. The familiar weight of the law had shifted from her shoulders to her side. Not as a burden, but as a tool for justice. "You okay?" Boone asked quietly as they prepared to leave. Lorraine nodded, her composure unshaken. The evidence speaks for itself now. She placed her notepad in her briefcase with deliberate care. The system works when we force it to work. The federal courthouse buzzed with tension as spectators filed into the courtroom. Every bench was filled, with observers pressed shoulder to shoulder. News crews clustered outside, barred from bringing cameras inside, but ready to document every entrance and exit. Chief Judge Eleanor Avery's presence commanded immediate silence as she took the bench. Her steel-gray hair and sharp gaze gave her the appearance of a hawk studying potential prey. The jury filed in, taking their seats as Nadine Price approached the podium with practiced confidence. "Your Honor, the United States will demonstrate a calculated pattern of civil rights violations and subsequent cover-up attempts," Nadine began, her voice clear and measured. Behind her, Lorraine sat with perfect posture, her hands folded on the table before her. Nadine activated the courtroom's display screens, showing a timeline marked with precise timestamps. At 12:07 p.m., before any inventory check was conducted, Officers Rourke and Voss initiated contact with Judge Whitaker. At 12:09 p.m., they detained her. The first inventory review didn't occur until 12:23 p.m. The defense counsel shifted uncomfortably as Nadine continued. At 12:11 p.m., both officers' body cams went offline simultaneously, not due to malfunction, but through manual deactivation. By 12:45 p.m., Mall Security Director Janice Klein's credentials were used to access and delete specific segments of security footage. Denise Harper took the stand first, her testimony clear despite obvious nervousness. "I started recording because something felt wrong," she explained, indicating her position on a courtroom diagram. "The officers were aggressive from the start, before anyone even mentioned theft." The live stream footage played on the monitors, showing Rourke's initial confrontation. The audio captured his accusatory tone clearly. "You're coming with us for theft," spoken before any communication with store staff. Milo Garner followed, explaining his kiosk's security setup. "My camera catches reflections in the storefront glass," he demonstrated using still images. "You can see Officer Voss grab Judge Whitaker's arm here, twisting it before she showed any resistance." Raj Patel's testimony proved devastating to the defense. He walked the jury through server logs and deletion patterns, his IT expertise making complex technical details accessible. "These aren't corruption artifacts," he explained, pointing to specific timestamps. "This is intentional removal of data using administrative credentials assigned to Ms. Klein." When Lorraine took the stand, the courtroom fell completely silent. She spoke with the same measured clarity she used from the bench, but now directed it toward reconstructing her ordeal. "Officer Rourke applied approximately 40 pounds of pressure to my left shoulder," she stated, demonstrating the angle with her hands. "He stated, and I quote, 'Not here,' when I identified myself as a federal judge." Officer Voss then increased wrist tension using a standard-issue restraint hold, but exceeded recommended pressure parameters by roughly 60%. The defense attorney rose for cross-examination, his tone suggesting condescension. "Judge Whitaker, isn't it true you expected special treatment because of your position?" "No," Lorraine replied simply. "I expected lawful treatment according to established procedure." "But you announced your title immediately, didn't you?" "I identified myself accurately when asked, as required by law. I also requested proper documentation of alleged theft, store management presence, and preservation of evidence. All standard procedural steps any citizen has the right to expect. The attorney tried again. Weren't you combative with officers performing their duty? Define combative, Lorraine responded calmly. I remained still, spoke at normal volume, and requested appropriate documentation. The officer's own report indicates no physical resistance. Officer Rourke's testimony began confidently but quickly unraveled. As he described the timeline of events, Nadine synchronized his statements with metadata from phone records, security logs, and witness videos on the courtroom displays. You stated you received theft reports at 11:58 a.m., Nadine noted. But phone records show the first call from mall security occurred at 12:14 p.m., after you had already detained Judge Whitaker. How do you explain this discrepancy? Rourke's face reddened. There must be some mistake in the records. The records are authenticated by 3 separate systems, Nadine countered. Would you like to revise your testimony? The defense team's motion to dismiss came as no surprise, but Judge Avery's response was swift and decisive. Motion denied, she declared, fixing the defense table with a stern look. The evidence presented clearly establishes probable cause for civil rights violations under color of law and deliberate tampering with evidence. Her instructions to the jury were equally clear, detailing the elements of civil rights violations, abuse of authority, and evidence tampering. The jurors' faces grew increasingly serious as she outlined the constitutional implications of law enforcement overreach and subsequent cover-up attempts. The late afternoon sun slanted through the courthouse windows as the jury filed back into the courtroom. Their faces carried the weight of hours spent reviewing evidence. Timestamps matched against testimony, server logs revealing deliberate deletions, synchronized footage exposing choreographed lies. Judge Avery's chamber's door opened. The gallery rose in unison, the rustle of movement giving way to complete silence. Lorraine stood beside Nadine at the prosecution table, her posture straight despite the lingering stiffness in her shoulder. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Avery asked. The foreperson, a middle-aged teacher with wire-rimmed glasses, stood. We have, Your Honor. The clerk accepted the verdict forms, presenting them to Judge Avery. She reviewed them carefully before returning them for reading. In the matter of civil rights violations under color of law, how do you find? We find the defendants guilty. Rourke's jaw tightened. His attorney placed a steadying hand on his arm. On the charge of evidence tampering? Guilty. Voss stared at the floor. His earlier bravado evaporated. Obstruction of justice? Guilty. Klein's carefully maintained corporate mask began to crack. Her manicured nails dug into the edge of the defense table. And on the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights? Guilty. The gallery remained silent, but the air crackled with the weight of justice finally served. Judge Avery's voice cut through the tension. In light of the serious nature of these convictions and the demonstrated pattern of evidence tampering, I am ordering the defendants remanded into immediate federal custody pending sentencing. Federal agents moved forward with practiced efficiency. The click of handcuffs echoed in the hushed courtroom. Rourke's composure finally broke. His face flushed red as the cuffs closed around his wrists. Voss seemed to shrink into himself, refusing to meet anyone's eyes as he was secured. Klein's protests died in her throat as an agent recited her rights. Outside the courtroom, reporters clustered around Nadine as she announced the broader implications. Today's verdict is just the beginning, she declared, her voice carrying across the marble hallway. The U.S. Attorney's Office is filing parallel federal civil actions targeting Pine Hollow County's entire asset forfeiture pipeline. We've uncovered systematic abuse of civil rights under the guise of law enforcement partnerships. Lorraine stood quietly beside Boone, watching the proceedings. She didn't need to speak. The verdict spoke for her. Her shoulder still ached from that day in the mall, a physical reminder of institutional arrogance that had finally met its match in methodical justice. The following weeks brought sweeping changes. A federal consent decree landed on Pine Hollow County like a thunderbolt. Every aspect of police oversight underwent restructuring. New body cam protocols required continuous operation during all civilian interactions, with strict penalties for deactivation. An independent review board was established to monitor compliance. The mall's security partnership program was dismantled entirely. Asset forfeiture policies were rewritten, requiring clear probable cause and judicial review. A victim compensation fund was established, funded by seized assets from the corrupt pipeline itself. Former detainees came forward with similar stories: false accusations, planted evidence, coerced pleas. Each case strengthened the federal oversight. Raj Patel was reinstated to his IT position with back pay. Milo Garner received commendation for preserving crucial evidence. Denise Harper's livestream footage became required viewing in Police Academy training on civil rights. Tessa Hargrove returned from protective custody to testify in the civil proceedings. Her testimony helped expose the broader pattern of mall security targeting specific shoppers for heightened surveillance based on race. Boone worked with federal investigators to identify other officers involved in the pipeline. His decades of experience helped translate pattern evidence into actionable intelligence. Each revelation led to another thread of corruption unraveling. Nadine's office processed hundreds of cases for review, prioritizing those involving the same officers and similar tactics. The scope of the conspiracy emerged in stark detail. Years of coordinated abuse masked by bureaucratic procedure and badge authority. Through it all, Lorraine maintained her judicial demeanor. She didn't seek spotlight or revenge. Her victory wasn't personal. It was procedural, the system correcting itself through documented evidence and due process. Her credibility remained unshaken because she had never wavered from proper procedure, even when she was the one being wrongly accused. On a bright morning, weeks after the verdict, Lorraine descended the courthouse steps into the sunlight. Not as the presiding judge, but as a citizen who had forced the system to confront its own corruption. Her shoulder had healed, but her resolve had only strengthened. She had demonstrated that justice doesn't require drama. It requires documentation, determination, and the courage to stand firm when those with power abuse it. The system had tried to break her through public humiliation and false accusations. Instead, she had broken the system's corruption using its own rules, proving that true authority comes not from force, but from unwavering adherence to justice. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.